Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Personal Injury Podcast. I am Jonathan Rosenfeld, and today I am joined by attorney Haig Himidin. Haig is an attorney in Chicago at a well-known personal injury firm, Taxman, Pollock, Murray, and Beckerman. I have known Haig for many years, and I am very, very honored to have him join me today. Haig, first off, thank you and welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, John. The honor is actually all mine. I mean, I consider you a friend, a colleague, but obviously I also very much admire your work and everything you do. What you're doing right now is another example of that, basically getting this information out to the masses. So it's really, really important stuff that people may not realize that they need until they actually do. So getting this information out there is incredibly important. So I commend you for doing so.
Well, thank you. I guess this is a great segue. You set me up perfectly, but really, I guess I want to talk to you about a few different topics today. You are sort of on the front lines when it comes to meeting with clients, prospective clients. You're really sort of head the intake team at your law firm. You've probably met with, I don't know, thousands of different clients, different types of cases, different backgrounds, you name it, you've seen it. And so I'm really looking for your input and expertise today when it comes to a lot of these issues. And I guess the first thing that I want to talk about is, a lot of people, off the bat, one of the first things they do is they try to, when they get after an accident or something, they punch in the computer and they're Googling personal injury lawyer near me. I want a lawyer near me. And I guess today I want to talk with you a little bit about why that may be a poor decision when it comes to selecting an attorney for a case. How there are other things to look for when selecting an attorney other than an attorney who may be local to your area. So I guess to begin with, when you talk to people, okay, when you're meeting with a client for the first time, what are you seeing that people are actually looking for with an attorney?
So I think quality of care is probably the most important part of what they're looking for, because obviously there's so many options out there when it comes to personal injury. They want somebody that they know that's going to give them the quality of care that they're looking for based on whatever case they have. I mean, primarily what they're reaching out for is for bodily injury related matters. So they've been in a crash, they've had a slip and fall injury, a dog bed injury, potentially a medical malpractice situation where they believe a doctor that they knew and trust did something wrong, and it's caused them injury that they've been dealing with on a day-to-day basis. It's been going on for a long time. They want to know that they have an attorney that they're talking to that is going to be receptive to their needs, that has the experience and reputation that goes a long way in making sure that they're going to get the results that they're looking for in this. And ultimately, what I try to portray in our first meetings, and you're right, essentially what I do here is I run the intake department. So I have staff members underneath me, but I'm the lead attorney in the department. So I talk to a lot of people, about these same kinds of factors. And so essentially what I turn it to is I tell them essentially when it comes down to the kind of attorney that they're looking for, they have to be sure that, the fee or anything that comes along with the money aspect of it is important and it's secondary in nature. The first thing that they should find is somebody that has more of the know-how in how to handle these situations, the manpower and the resources to be able to take on these particular kinds of cases. And, I definitely put that to the forefront in promoting our firm here, Taxman, Pollock, Murray, Beckerman.
Well, I think it's, you raise a few great issues. I think a lot of times people don't realize that when you're dealing with a personal injury case, particularly a catastrophic injury case, this is something that's going to be going on for some time. This may be going on for months. And unfortunately, in a case of a horrific accident, this is something that's probably going to be going on for years. And, I always tell people, picking a lawyer is a lot like picking a spouse. You really want to, pick someone that you can trust, that you can be with for the long term. When you meet with a family, are those the questions that you're sort of fielding? Are some of these people a little bit naive to what they may be in for, and I guess sort of how do you get their expectations in line with the actual process and how things will likely play out?
I think you touched on it right there. Expectations are the pivotal role in first meeting with a client and talking to them about their injury. So typically, when I first meet with families or people that are injured looking for an attorney, they're in a really vulnerable position. They're involved in something that is very traumatic, something that doesn't happen every day to anybody, and so it's completely life altering in a lot of ways. And then there are family members around that are trying to give them support and make sure that they're making the right decisions moving forward, because a lot of times they're making decisions on emotion at that point. And so what I try to do when I go in is really trying to look at it objectively. And I ask them all the questions that I need to in terms of understanding what happened in the particular circumstances of the injury itself. So it puts things into perspective in a sense where when I get through all the facts, then I talk about all the legal ramifications of how to look at it legally and how it would actually apply to a court case. Because sometimes I tell them, sometimes common sense doesn't translate one-to-one from what you see on the street to what happens in a courtroom. And so putting that into perspective for them goes a long way, and for them to understand that there is more to this than just, I got hurt. There's a lot more that goes into play. But ultimately, I always bring it back to, it is their case, that we are their negotiators, advisors, advocates, trying to get them the best result possible to make sure that not only are their medical bills, lost wages are all being covered, but on top of that, their troubles, the trauma that they went through physically, emotionally, any permanent aspects of that are being accounted for as well, for both past and future. So when I go into these meetings with families, sometimes it's in a house, sometimes it's bedside, I do approach it with a very gentle touch, but then I also, like you said, set very firm expectations in terms of what potentially could happen in the outcome of a case, the difficulties that may come up throughout the case, and how we're going to tackle them if and when they do come up.
Well, I mean, I think it's important that people realize that there's no such thing as a perfect case. You know, every case has got ups, downs, pitfalls, roadblocks. And that, when a family or an individual who's involved in an accident is selecting an attorney, they really need to recognize that, there's going to be issues along the way. And having someone that they can pick up the phone, they can drop an email to, a text to, when they have questions, that's really going to be important. So they really need to, and one of the things that I really respect about what you do is that you really make people, you really put people at ease. You really make people feel comfortable. And I think a lot of times people really, they don't give that the credit that it deserves. A lot of times people assume, well, hey, this guy, this woman is a heck of a trial attorney. They kick ass in court, but there's a lot more to a case than just going to court and beating people up. There's a lot of hand holding, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of other issues. So, certainly that's important. I want to transition a little bit and talk about, I know sometimes people, after an accident, they a lot of times they'll ask a friend, a family member, about their situation. And, I always sort of, I always tell people, well, your family may mean very well, but when the truth is that each case is unique. And, again, this goes to the putting their expectations in line. But how do you, when you come into a situation saying, hey, my relative had a similar case. They had a car accident that they got, $50,000 for their car accident. What's my car accident worth? How do you sort of bridge the gap between, being an advocate and also a realist at the same time? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you touched on a couple of points that come up almost every single time I meet with a new client that is, talking to an attorney or potentially multiple attorneys trying to decide on who to go with. So, if we're talking about their friends and family telling them things, the first thing I ask them is, are they attorneys? Because ultimately, anybody can Google something and then find an article that says, what they're looking for, and then just regurgitate that, and then people start believing it. But realistically, the most important part is the part that you said, every case is unique. And when I say that, I really mean that. And I talk about how, this particular case had facts completely separate, damages were completely separate kind of insurance coverage, different time of day, different, all these different things. They realize, oh yeah, my case is different than that one. My case is unique, and how another person's can be unique as well. And so it kind of puts things in a lot more perspective for them, that just because somebody else got X amount of dollars doesn't mean I'm going to, but I do have a valid case, a meritorious case that has damages that are sufficient, where I have an attorney that's talking to me that cares about my case. And so when we're talking about expectations of being a realist, I tell them first and foremost, I can't guarantee them anything in terms of how the case can end up, but that the facts of the case make it so that they have a strong case. And on top of that, I give them an explanation as to what a case could be, how a case is evaluated in terms of how it could be worth. And we talk about, the difference between economic and non-economic damages and how that would apply on every single case. And I talk about how, if we're talking about economic, we look at medical bills, we look at lost wages, we look at out-of-pocket expenses, things that you would technically see on a piece of paper. And then we use that as a foundation on which to build on what we consider to be non-economic damages, pain and suffering, loss of a normal life, permanency, disfigurement, depending on the injury and all that too. And so I that's how I approach valuation, or if questions come up as to value, or if somebody else got X and somebody else is telling me why, is that every case is different, and that all the damages that we look at are going to play a big part in how that in their particular case is going to be valued at. And so, substance of the bills, like medical bills and all that, is a big part. Substance of their the nature and extent of their injuries is going to be a big part. And so I talk about in very frank terms, in terms of not trying to minimize anything they're going through at all, because everybody's going through some kind of trouble or hardship as a result of the injuries. But I do try to put them into perspective as, how it would compare to some others, but not to detract from their case. But again, like you said, to kind of put it in more real terms.
I always tell people, from the get-go, let's prepare for war and hope for peace. And, I think that's sort of the, what one of the things that your firm does, and that, when we work together on cases, we always try to build a case, as strong a case as possible from the get-go. There's certain things that you can do at the inception of a case, to really prepare the case for the long haul and position it, whether the case gets resolved, the case goes to trial. There's certain things that we can do early on, to really help solidify the foundation of a case and position it for the best outcome down the road. Um, I guess, getting back to our original sort of topic here, a lot of times people, they want to get a lawyer who's maybe close to them, but which makes sense, but to a certain degree. But I think in today's day and age, with, office technology, Zoom, phone calls, text, email, I really think that those really enable people who may live outside of, we're in Chicago. There's a lot of attorneys here. Uh, there's some very good attorneys here. But if someone's in a more rural area, that maybe a smaller city, smaller suburb, um, you know, are you using that type of technology on a regular basis to really help, you know, even though that person may live 50 miles, 500 miles away, to really make them feel sort of part of that, you're actually part of their case, and that they're actually, they have someone who they can reach out to, with those technologies.
Absolutely. I mean, even before the pandemic, those types of technologies were becoming more and more of the forefront, and the sole means of being able to actually file documents in court, appear in court, doing those kinds of things that would make it so that it's more convenient and easier for people that aren't within, like you said, a 50 or 100-mile range to be able to practice in that area. But now, even more so than ever before, has it become there that the electronic means of communicating with the court, communicating with insurance companies, has become the sole means at this point of being able to do that. So geography is no longer an issue as much as it used to be. I mean, if we're talking about different jurisdictions, yeah, I mean, ultimately we have to consider whether or not, we're licensed to practice in a particular area, but we do practice in all 50 states. And there's a way that we can do that either through the federal circuit, or if we ask for permission to actually practice in a particular jurisdiction that we don't typically practice in. And everything from filing to court appearances to calls to all of that is being done electronically anyway. And for our clients, for their sake, they don't really ever have to show up to court or anything like that, because we do that for them. We take that burden off their hands to be able to do, and doing so by using the tools at our disposal has been the way to do it, even more so in the last year and a half, I guess, more so than ever before. But I think moving forward as well, it's probably going to be a very much a mainstay. I think people are getting very used to the fact that they're able to join court hearings, to see the judge, to do even jury trials in a solely technological way. And so I think in the future, it's probably going to precipitate into different aspects of the legal structure as well, much more so than just, the court system or just the insurance side of like claims and all that as well. I think it's going to get even more technologically based. So it makes it that much easier to have a further reach and further extension into like those rural areas as well.
Hi, this was awesome. I appreciate it. I really appreciate your time, your expertise. This was great. And I look forward to talking with you again shortly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Happy to be a part of it.